Hi, I'm Alex, but many call me Dr. Mama Bird. I'm a wife, a mom, a chiropractor, and maternal health care advocate. After a traumatic birth experience that led to an unplanned C-section over 6 years ago, I found myself searching for answers on how to heal. Even though I was in the maternal health care space myself, I found it difficult to find the resources needed to truly recover and restore my body. After 2 years of research, I found myself pregnant with our second child and was able to have an amazing redemptive VBAC birth experience with my dream team. After that incredible experience, I felt God had placed on my heart a mission to help other mamas and families have a similar redemptive experience. And in time, with my husband's help, we developed the C-section restoration method. On this journey, we've met a ton of amazing healthcare providers that are often considered hidden gems in the Dallas area. Now, as a part of that mission, I'm here to connect you and other families with the incredible healthcare providers who are passionate about supporting you and helping you to achieve your family's health and wellness goals. I'm Dr. Alex Pankoch, and this is the Dr. Mama Bird Show. Welcome back, Mama Birds. It's Dr. Alex here, and today I have a very exciting host. She's one of my dear friends, and she is a hidden gem in the DFW area for mamas who are looking to have a beautiful birth experience. Her name is Angie Heffner, and she is a midwife in the DFW area. Her practice is, and I don't want to get it wrong, Angie, remind me, it's DFW or North Dallas?
North Texas Birth Experiences.
North Texas Birth Experiences. Yes, she's also an entrepreneur. She's a mama of nine, and she's been doing this for how long?
Well, it started years ago as I was a doula before I was a midwife. And then I was trained as a birth assistant in California, and that's where I lived before I moved here to Texas. So it's been ongoing for years, but I've been in Dallas for almost 7 years this summer.
Awesome.
Yes.
And so, Angie, I would love to hear before we jump in, because I know a lot of people watching this, some may know, some may not know, some are interested. They're looking at what other options they have when it comes to birth.
Yes.
What is a midwife?
It's such a good question, because some people don't know. They think, do I need a doctor? Do I need a midwife? Do I want a doctor? Do I want a midwife? So a midwife specializes in low risk pregnancy and low risk birth. And a midwife can operate really in terms of having the care provider in any setting. A midwife can be in a hospital, a midwife can be in a birth center, a midwife can also be in a home birth. I particularly specialize in home birth. That's just where my heart is at for women. But I have attended plenty of hospital births and also plenty of birth center births, but I just happen to love home birth. So sometimes women will say, well, if I have you, do I still need a doctor? What about a doula? Are you the same as a doula? And sometimes there's a few little questions that they don't quite understand the separation. So yes, if you are someone that's a low risk in your pregnancy and there's no problems that we know of or that don't kind of pop up throughout the pregnancy, and of course whatever happens at the birth and postpartum, then you can have a home birth and you don't necessarily need a doctor. A doula is separate in terms of being focused on emotional care, physical support, comfort measures, position changes, making sure that at the birth the mama has eaten, as she is drinking her water, she's reminded to go to the bathroom. She has all of the focus on someone who is just there for her emotional needs and her physical needs and doesn't have to think or try to understand what is going on medically. So she can keep her head in the game in a very certain way for a physical support. Where a midwife, when it comes to the birth, her main focus is keeping mom and baby safe medically. Now, sometimes there's an overlap and a midwife can provide the same type of warmth and comfort to a mama that a doula can, but the utmost, highest priority is keeping the mom and the baby safe. So if there is that concern and the midwife is focusing on the medical aspects, that there's still someone in the doula role that can come alongside and provide all that emotional and physical support, and so that there's nothing missing for the mom. So it's a beautiful dance, and a midwife and a doula can do together. And I believe doulas are important in a hospital setting, doulas are important in a birth center setting, and also a home birth setting. And for a first-time mom or a 10th time mom, doulas have a place in every birth.
So you've been a doula before you were a midwife for quite a long time with Doula, which is doula.
Doulas of North America.
North America, yes.
Yes. It's one of the widely known doula organizations, nationally and internationally.
Awesome. Okay, so just to be clear, so your midwife is a lot of times takes the place of having an OB/GYN
That's correct.
at the birth.
Yes.
Right? But you have to qualify for certain things in order to be with a midwife. Like you said, the midwife is low risk. There are midwives. We have amazing midwives in some of the hospitals here in Dallas.
Yes, we do.
And we've got midwives in many of the birth centers, all of the birth centers have midwives in Dallas. But then you can also do home midwifery as well. Can you share with us what a home birth is? Like, what does that look like? How is that different? And why might somebody be interested in investigating that?
Yes. So not only do you have to be low risk, like you said, but you are screened throughout the pregnancy, multiple times in the pregnancy, and then of course during the birth itself. But one of the reasons why I think some people really enjoy the aspect of a home birth is you could bring their heart for what they want in birth in their own environment. They live there. They live there all day long, every day. So they can really sit there in their life and envision, what would my birth be like here in my home? This is where my family is. So what also plays into that, which is so great, is having in-home prenatal care. So I am one of the few midwives that offer exclusive in-home prenatal care. And they love that. They're like, you're going to come here, you're going to sit with me like this at the kitchen counter or on the couch, or I do prenatal visits in the backyard. Wherever you want to have your prenatal visit, I'm going to do it. And after weeks and weeks and months of building up to that, when it comes down to the birth, when I walk in, they think, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Like we've been doing this for weeks. This feels great. And it's a special feeling where they can make their birth theirs. They don't necessarily have to fit in another box that maybe is someone else's space. It's their personal space that they can make it themselves. They feel comfortable walking around in their kitchen during the birth, or walking into the backyard, being on their staircase where they live there every day, so they know what works for them and what doesn't. And it becomes just a beautiful place to birth your baby. And then they can keep reliving that over and over again. Yeah. In a good way. Like, hey, you were born right here on the kitchen floor. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Special.
It is. And especially, having multiple children, having to worry about where they might be can definitely be very peaceful and relaxing if you have, like I've got 2 kiddos and then this third one is on the way, and knowing where they are going to be makes a huge difference versus, taking them out of their environment if you want them to participate in the birth, or trying to coordinate childcare at the last minute when you have kiddos. So that's a really nice thing about home birth is they know where their toys are and their things are.
They know, and most of the time women will birth at night, majority of the time. And so if there is concerns about childcare, I don't know what I'm going to do with my toddler, I've never left my toddler in their entire life, then it's kind of nice. They have the option of keeping them asleep, and they likely sleep through it. Or if they want to wake the toddlers up or the older kids at the last minute and bring them in to witness the birth of their little baby sibling, then that's awesome too. But it's just the options are there, like you said, which is so good. So they feel comfortable there. They're less likely to act out because it's their home also, which makes the mama a little bit more at peace. Yeah. Although it can be surprising sometimes at 2 a.m. when a toddler's brought into their mother's bedroom and they're like, oh, since when did we swim in the bedroom with the midwife and the assistant here? But it's kind of interesting to watch them react to that. But they do great. I love siblings at birth. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. And as a doula, so like we just established, the midwife is a medical professional, a healthcare professional that is going to help you manage your pregnancy throughout, as well as be there to attend the birth and catch the baby. Your doula, there's several different types of doulas.
Yes. There's
sibling doulas. Your doula's there to do so many different things, but a sibling doula is somebody who can also provide support. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I love sibling doulas. They're great, especially for families that say don't have family close by to help with the siblings, or maybe they just don't feel comfortable with their own family there, which is perfectly fine too. So you can hire a sibling doula to meet with you once or twice in the pregnancy to get to know the kids. And then when it comes down to the birth, her primary role is to help guide the children in an environment that they would maybe want to be a part of, or maybe they don't want to be a part of it, but she's trained and familiar with birth, so she can read the room and understand not only the children, but the birth space to see how's the mama feeling too. Would the mama benefit from having the kids close by for that great oxytocin hit? Or is mama feeling a little bit like, I would rather maybe them step out? But the sibling doula sole focus is on the siblings, which I think is great. Postpartum doulas, that's another great role of a doula.
Yeah.
So her role is to come in after the baby's born and to focus on mothering the mother so that she can be the best mother to the baby. A postpartum doula is not going to focus primarily on baby care or a nanny position. It's more focusing on how to help the mother be completely prepared to be a mother. So if that means feeding her, helping her with light meals and the baby's laundry, so that all her responsibility is to provide care for her little baby.
That's awesome. That's
Yes.
beautiful. And that being, we've talked about this on other shows before, a lot of people in DFW are not from this area. They don't necessarily
Yes.
have family. So
So true.
doula in multiple different roles, whether it's a doula that is for the mom at the birth, a doula that's for the kiddos at the birth, a doula that's for the mom after the birth, all of those
Yes.
different pieces can really substitute that village that we used to have innately built into our family structure that is not always there anymore.
I know.
And so, and being familiar with birth, a lot of people are no longer familiar with birth, so it can be interesting to have family members who have never seen or done this before.
Yes.
Versus somebody who can be more of a thermostat to the room and say, hey, like, okay, this is normal.
This is
we're
okay.
chill.
Everything's still okay.
This is good.
This is what we were expecting to happen.
Yes.
A lot of times I find myself saying that. This is exactly what we expected to happen. It's okay. This
Yes.
is good. This is really good.
That's awesome. And then in contrast, then
Yes.
your midwife is almost,
Yes.
I don't want to say the opposite, but you're so focused on the medical
Yes.
side of it.
Exactly.
That,
It's the top priority.
yes.
Yes.
So for the mom who's concerned, or maybe, the question has come up, maybe she's thought about home birth
Yeah.
or birth at a birth center or in a midwife or in a
hospital.
In a hospital. And her concern might be safety. Like, is this
Yes.
safe? One of the
Yes.
things I typically say is up until 80 years ago, everybody was born at home.
Everybody.
So, I mean, we made it as a human race, but
Yes, we did. We survived.
obviously medicine has come a long way and things have
Sure.
changed quite a bit. But for the mom who's maybe interested in more of a physiological or what some people might call natural birth or a more traditional experience, what would you say to that, or how would you potentially help her to communicate that potentially to other people,
Yes.
maybe a partner or family members
Sure.
who don't understand why she might do that?
Right. Well, I think, first of all, we live in this great metroplex with medical care almost on every corner. So I always try to help encourage these families if they're on the fence. Well, I'm not sure if I feel comfortable, or I'm not sure if my husband feels comfortable, but somewhere in us we want to do this, we're just not sure, then we go over all the safety precautions. I'm prepared for an emergency at every birth. I set up for all the emergency equipment and bring all the medications that potentially could be needed at every single birth, because we just don't know when something might pop up. Yes, the women are screened throughout their pregnancy multiple times, and screened also during the labor itself. We're checking vitals, we're making sure that the big picture looks good, that everything on the chart is perfect, but at the same time, sometimes things pop up, so we're prepared for that. And like I said, we have emergency care just about everywhere here. So if there was a need, if something fell out of what's called low risk and out of scope for a low risk midwife, and then thankfully, EMS and 911 are just around the corner, and they're very responsive. We have a great hospital here in Dallas, Baylor University in downtown Dallas. Yeah. They welcome home birth transfers, or even birth center transfers for that matter, with open arms. They're respectful, they're supportive. They understand that maybe this wasn't the first choice, but we're still here to help these moms and babies and families. And so I love that we can call them, and we can show up, and we can still get the care we need, oftentimes with the same result that we wanted, but just maybe a little different environment. Just a little different environment. But it's so great that women who are, again, that are safe, that have been screened appropriately, can birth at home and physiologically. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes they just don't want cervical exams frequently. Sometimes they don't want medications to start the labor. Sometimes they don't want medications to help reduce the pain. And at home, they have all of that going for them. If they don't want a certain thing, then it doesn't have to happen. If they do want certain things, then that's great. Just as long as they stay safe medically, that's the biggest priority. But there's a lot of room to make it their own, to make it physiological, to make it feel like, hey, this is really my birth, not the birth of a medical provider that's doing it for their own desires. Yeah. So they're supported, they're loved, they're encouraged, and they feel like, what? Yeah. I can do that at home? Yep, you sure can.
Yeah, and having myself had both options, and you can speak to this too, because you've
I've
had
birthed
9
in the
kiddos.
hospital. I've birthed out of the hospital. Yes, with 9 babies myself. Yes.
Yeah, it is a different experience
Yes.
when you have the opportunity as a mom, as a woman, to step into that space where you are the one doing it. It's you and God, and that's it. And it's a beautiful intimate space. It's also it's a space where it requires a lot of surrender and like you change as a person and trust and you know, even speaking to this, you know, stepping back, speaking to the safety piece. Some of the viewers may know this, may not know this. I had a C-section my first, but started as a home birth, and sometimes people will say, you know, that's a failed home birth, but the reality is when you have, and this is the key here, a midwife is a licensed healthcare professional, a licensed medical professional who is able to understand and determine and read what is going on and make a call
when it's time to go.
Necessary.
It's time to go.
Yeah,
exactly.
And not any second too late, right? So with my first birth, you know, I was never in any danger. You know, we got to the ER. Yes, you have to switch things up a little bit. You know, there's a rush, there's a baby on the way, obviously.
Yes, there is.
Got to the L&D ward, but I was never in danger. My baby was never in danger. The midwife never lets it get that far that somebody's in danger. When things change, you move on. Or when signs start to come up, we start having those conversations and allow parents to make those decisions.
Yes, together.
Yes, exactly. And so for anybody who's concerned about that, you know, hospital transfers happen.
They do.
How frequently would you say you typically see hospital transfers?
Not very frequently, not very. Sometimes with a first-time mom, if she's tired, if she's been laboring for days and she's kind of be like a little wilted flower, sometimes all she needs is an epidural, a nice nap, and then she wakes up and pushes her baby out, and that's awesome. You know, and that's okay. Like I said, there's a time and place for the medical teams that we have everywhere in this great metroplex. But other transfers, emergency transfers, they don't happen all that often, but when they do, like you said, I'm proud that we were able to know when the line has gotten too close now, like we're no longer safe here at home, and that's okay. It's not a failure, like you said. It's a smart use of resources. It's skilled midwives that know this no longer qualifies as a low-risk birth. The safety of you and your baby are my utmost priority, so we must initiate an EMS and go, and that should be a success, and thankful that we have access to that.
Yeah. And that's so, like you said, so wonderful. We have so many options, so many options. I know with mine, you know, my transfer was literally 4 minutes. My husband drove me. We didn't need EMS. We just went down the street.
We just did it.
Got there
4 minutes away, and exactly.
There we go. We beat the doctor to the room. So, you know, if you live, especially if you're in Dallas and you live close to a hospital, there really are some really great opportunities. You know, when you have a licensed healthcare professional. Now, this is kind of a controversial topic. If you're okay talking about it, but I have been hearing about people who are free birthing. Can you explain what that is, the difference between working with a midwife and somebody who does not have a licensed medical professional on their team?
I've noticed sometimes that people don't even quite understand what a free birth is. Sometimes they want a midwife to be there, but just be hands off. Other times they don't want a midwife there. And when I say midwife, I mean, like you said, a licensed healthcare professional. So I think what usually means free birth is that a woman is birthing her baby with her husband, her family, her friends, whoever she wants, but there's no licensed medical professional there. And so that is their choice. People ask me, will you come and attend my free birth? Well, it's not a free birth if I'm there. So there is kind of like when people aren't exactly sure what the difference between a doula and a midwife is. I don't think that everyone understands what a free birther is and what isn't. But if I'm there, I've been contracted to be there, I've been invited there, I've been paid for my services, then that's not a free birth. And that's a birth with a licensed medical professional. And that's a midwifery care birth. So yeah, some people do birth their babies without licensed professionals. I don't recommend that, but we all have our own desires and choices, and we can choose what we want to do.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yes, and so kind of like stepping more into that, that if somebody were to have a doula, that still would qualify. So and these are things these are intentional choices. So when I speak to free birth, meaning somebody who is intentionally choosing not to have a medical professional there. A doula does not substitute a midwife, correct?
Yeah, never. So a doula in any setting, like we said earlier, a hospital setting, a birth center setting, a home birth setting, a doula is not a trained, licensed medical professional. So regardless of where a doula is, she does not take the place of a midwife. She's a wonderful asset to midwifery care, or even OB care in the hospital, but not instead of. So if a woman was having a free birth without a licensed midwife there, then that would still qualify, because she is not a medical professional. She's not trained. She hasn't been licensed. She doesn't count as a midwife.
Yeah. And then, having a midwife there, even if you're like, hey, I want it to be as hands-off as possible, the benefit of a midwife there are to be looking for things that
would fall exactly outside of what the mother can do on her own. And that's when the midwife jumps in and can take care of that medically. Yes.
And you also serve the baby as well, as soon as the baby is born, and then for how long afterwards?
6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, and I always bring an assistant with me to the birth, sometimes 2 assistants, but always at least 1. And yes, so not only are we caring for the mother postpartum, but we're also caring for the baby. And I come back and see my families in terms of mother-baby care at 2 days postpartum, 2 weeks postpartum, and again at 6 weeks postpartum. Yes, and again, all of the postpartum care is in the home, just as my prenatal care was in the birth too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it keeps everybody safe, like we said, but it also allows you to be in your own space.
In your own space. Yeah. Yes, especially for the 2-day visit. I mean, to try to pack up yourself and the baby, and if there's other siblings, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But it's a lot, and to ask the mom to push herself that hard, even if her partner or husband were helping her, it's still something that has to be that push to get out of bed and get dressed in the car seat and the whole thing. So it's an absolute blessing and convenience to have your midwife come right to you.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. And we'll talk in another episode about another really cool service here in Dallas that gives even more support. So stay tuned for that one. I don't want to blow the secret. But when it comes to postpartum care and it comes to taking care of mom, what are some of the things that you would recommend whether somebody's having a hospital birth, a birth center birth, a home birth? What would you recommend a mom do to prepare herself for postpartum?
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, some supplies in the home. So that way her husband or partner doesn't have to run out and try to get the last minute details. But having a peri bottle in the home is great. Having something for after pains. I mean, women, the uterus does great things to contract and squeeze and you birth your baby. But afterwards, a uterus needs to go back down and clamp down to minimize the bleeding. And that takes a lot of work, especially if it's been stretched once or twice. In my case, 9 times. My uterus had to work so hard to get back down so the bleeding was minimal. So having something for those after pains, if it's After Ease, which is a great herbal supplement you can take to minimize the after pains naturally, or ibuprofen. Some people use arnica. Some people use all kinds of great things to help relieve that. But being prepared, I think, with supplies is a very good idea for the dad or for the partner. So no one has to go out and do anything and get anything, and they can really just soak into that postpartum bliss and focus on the baby. Feeding the baby regularly, having lactation consultants come out to the house is also a great thing. We have so many added care providers that can come into the home. Chiropractors come into the home. Lactation support comes into the home. Pelvic floor therapy comes into the home. Those are all options here, so women really like that too. But having a lactation consultant that's going to help with the latch, help with the position changes, do weighted feeds if necessary to really try to help that baby gain as much weight as need to. The goal for the 2-day visit is that they don't lose more than 10% of their body weight. And the goals for the baby on the 2-week visit is that they're back to birth weight. So we want to make sure that that's happening. We want to have touch points on the family, not only the midwife, but additional support from a lactation consultant or an IBCLC if needed.
Awesome. And so leading up to the birth then, what are, as a midwife, some of your top recommendations? So to take a step back, when you're having a birth at home, pregnancy brain, y'all. When you're having a birth at home or a birth center, even at a hospital, you can choose not to have an epidural or medications. Now, at a birth center or a home, you're definitely not getting an epidural.
Definitely not.
There may be some options like nitrous or something.
Sometimes at birth centers.
Sometimes, but not often. Not all birth centers offer that. But for the most part, what you feel is what you're going to feel. And so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And so for the mom who is wanting to have what we would call a physiological birth, a birth that doesn't have as many interventions with it or pain medication, what would you recommend are some of the top things to prepare her body for that?
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need focused childbirth education that is geared towards a natural medication-free birth so that women really start to understand what their bodies are capable of doing, why they're feeling what they're feeling, how they're feeling it, and what different feelings could mean, so they're not caught off guard. If we prepare in advance and we prepare the mind, we prepare the body through exercise, through all kinds of stretching and different classes to help the body prepare for that, then when the time comes, if mentally they knew what to expect, then in the moment, they're not trying to catch up and make sense of it. It's very difficult with the intensity of contractions to make sense emotionally on what is happening. But if we prepared in advance with the knowledge, we got evidence-based information, we surrounded ourselves with other experts in the field that have been there before, that we've included our partner, that we've taken the time. I know we're all very busy. Most of us are working full-time, even 2 family full-time households, but taking that time and preparation in advance to understand the knowledge and then put it into practice. That we're making the time now to do our stretches, to do our lunges, to curb walk, to walk on the stairs, to get chiropractic care, which I love that we have access to some phenomenal chiropractors like yourself who are going to take the time to adjust the pelvis, to do all the great things that you do at Webster certification. So these women are set up for success. So not only are they getting the knowledge, but they're having the other touch points like the chiropractor. Pelvic floor, I think, is huge too. Not all women even understand what a pelvic floor is or that we even need it in the pregnancy. Some people think, well, I've kind of heard a little bit about that, but I recommend that all my families have a pelvic floor assessment in their pregnancy and postpartum also, especially ones like myself who have birthed multiple babies. It's important to take care of your pelvic floor. Yes, so I love that women that want to birth outside of the hospital, whether it's a birth center or home birth, really have taken the reins in being a partner in their healthcare. It's not that they're just showing up and their doctor saying, do this, do that, okay, see you later, 5 minutes, it's done. No, that they're invested, that they're interested in knowing, where can I get better information? Where can I get information that's really going to benefit me and my family and my baby? And then they want, majority of the time, they really want to do it. They're excited about it. They're texting me, hey, I found this. What do you think about this? Or I did what you said and I implemented it and you were right. Those natural, holistic options were very helpful to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad, you know, living food for a living body. When we treat the body naturally, a lot of times it will respond. But again, if we don't have the good success that we had hoped for, that's okay because there are other options that we can take. We can evolve other healthcare professionals to consult with and to give prescriptions if we need them. But it's nice that we can start somewhere naturally and then build from there.
Yeah, and I love that. And just a reminder that that's, I mean, up until the last 100 years or so, that's just how it was.
That's how it was.
And we've all survived. We're all here. And you know, thank you for mentioning chiropractic care. One of the main things that we, you know, as prenatal chiropractor, we'll do a segment on this at some point.
Sure.
Would make sense.
It would.
Perinatal chiropractic care is essential, I think, in preparing the body, especially first-time moms. But you know, in general, preparing your body for birth is something to be very considerate of, regardless of who you're birthing with, where you're birthing. Your body does have to go through different motions and movements to have that baby exit out.
Yes.
Most moms have a pelvis that is very capable of birthing a baby, but it might be restricted or too tight, and often we may be told your pelvis is too small. You've had 9 kids and you're not the biggest person on the planet, right?
My pelvis did it just fine. I did 2 babies with an epidural and 7 without, and it was just fine.
So for the moms who are concerned, like, oh, I'm petite, like, am I going to be able to birth this baby? Usually that's not the case.
Correct. It's usually not the case. I mean, my biggest baby was 13, I believe, and I birthed them just fine. And you see that all the time in your practice too, with mamas, you know, in the past, I don't know, 20 plus years, you've seen, you know, and I've seen it too, mamas who are, you know, they may be petite, but they birth just fine as long as their body is ready. And a lot of these traditions that we had built into
pregnancy and labor and birth and other cultures have been lost. And then we sit at the desk all day and your pelvis
Sedentary.
becomes tight and rigid. We've got injuries from before, if you played sports, car accidents, things like that. Those are all the things that as a chiropractor I'm asking, like, what has your pelvis potentially done before this?
Or not done.
Or not done. Yes, that we need to address to get it ready and make sure all of the joints are moving properly. All of the muscles have the proper ability to move properly, that your abdomen, the muscles of your abdomen are able to stretch to allow for baby to get in an optimal position for birth.
Fetal position. Because a moving mama is a moving baby. I often tell my families that if the cup is the mama and there was ice in here and that's the baby, how are we going to get that baby to move? We're going to move that mama and then that baby is going to move. And so, spinning babies exercises I think are great. I spend time, about 45 minutes in each one of my prenatal visits, which is also very helpful, not only to bond and get to know each other, to do the medical assessments that are necessary, but to also spend time educating them, showing them, hey, let's get on the couch or on your bed and do a side leg release. Let's make sure your leg is dangling and we can feel if there's tension here. And I show their partners, hey, this is where you can kind of bring a little relief. You should practice this a couple times a week. And as we near the birth, maybe every day if you can. I'm encouraging them to sit on their ball, to think, hey, every time I'm sitting on a chair, sitting on the couch, I could be sitting on the ball instead. You can pull it up to the dinner table and eat on the ball. If you're going to be using your phone or your laptop, you can opt for that instead. So the pelvis has that ability to continue to be moving, keeping your core strong, making sure your feet are flat so we don't roll off. And it's a great thing. So I love preparation in advance, because then at the end when they birth their baby and they're snuggling right there with their baby on their chest, they feel like, yeah, I did that. I put in all the work and look at what it got me, and the rejoices through the roof.
Maybe I need to have a birth ball for my next few episodes.
Oh my goodness, you should.
Up here like, this is how you do it, ladies.
This is what you do.
But it does make a huge difference. A moving body, a moving pelvis. As a moving baby, babies get, I love to hear the labor stories of moms who have, the simple, short, easy labors. They're like, especially first time moms, we get those pelvises open, we get things moving, baby's in a great position, the body is doing what it's designed to do. Often the moms that I work with have no idea they're in early labor. They come in and I'm like, so how you feeling?
What's been happening in the past few hours?
Then I text Angie and I say, so mama come in, she's showing these signs, she's completely unaware, but she'll probably realize in a little bit that things are going to happen soon. And that's actually the ideal situation, right? Like, it's every birth is different, every mama is different. But if you are able to not necessarily feel all of the feelings for the 24 hours, which is average for a first-time mom.
For early labor.
For early labor. It can be settling, and you're not like, when is it going to happen? What's going to happen?
Counting down every contraction that happens. Sometimes that can get really caught up in our mental capacity, and then we're not at peace and letting our bodies do what they want. So distraction. I think that's what you were talking about. I feel like that's key in early labor, that you keep yourself distracted so that you can go on with your day-to-day life, and that you're not so worried about what your body's doing, because it's going to do it. And then the next thing that should happen in early labor is eating. We do not want to neglect how important fuel and protein is for the body. It's doing hard work in early labor, and it will be doing more hard work in active labor, and it will be doing more hard work when we need to push our baby out. So we have to prepare in advance in early labor. So with fuel, hydration, also very important. I always encourage my moms to go to the source first. If they like coconut water, that's a great idea to how to hydrate. If they don't like that, then that's fine. Then all those little packets, that works great. If they don't want to taste something, that maybe those packets are just like, ugh, there's too much taste going on, then smart water is a great option, because it has the added electrolytes with no flavor other than the water. So distracting yourself, eating, hydrating, sleeping. Rest is so much of importance when it comes to early labor, because mamas are like a little battery, and we don't want to deplete that in early labor, because once we get to active labor or pushing, then there's nothing left. So we want to store up resting, napping, even if it's 10 a.m. and you feel like, well, I just woke up recently. That's okay. Take a nice bath with Epsom salt, and then put yourself back into bed and take a nice nap, so that your body can be strong and ready to do the hard work that's coming down the road, maybe in a few hours, maybe the next day. But we want to focus on preparing not only in the pregnancy for the day of the birth, but then preparing in early labor with food, with hydration, with movement. We don't want to be too sedentary, but we also want to rest, and then we want to distract. So that's the 5 things. So the whole movement and rest is like a little shimmy that we do in early labor. We want to do some, but not too much of one or the other.
Yeah. And I've heard this multiple times that pregnancy is like running a marathon all day, every day, whether you're awake or you're asleep. And that's not the labor. The labor is like an ultra marathon. And then you have to take care of a child immediately after that.
Immediately.
And so that's where postpartum care really comes in hand, because you really need to heal. You really need to rest. I know there's moms who are popping up, a week, 2 weeks later, doing all kinds of things and like trying to get back to our bodies. But in reality, having had 9 kids and, having, this would be number 3 for me, like how long would you say postpartum is? I have a figure in my head that I would say postpartum is, but
well, technically it's 6 weeks.
It's technically 6 weeks when working with a midwife, right? Like your care ends at 6 weeks, but the process of actually recovering.
Resting, yes. One of the first questions I ask my families is if they have a partner, hey, how long does he have off of work? Because that really plays directly into how long she's going to be in bed resting, especially if there's other children, especially if there's animals involved, or if she works from home, or all these things play into it. So I would really like for her to stay in bed for about a week if she can, and only getting up for her own bathroom needs. If the baby is fussy and needs to be walked around, or importantly, the baby needs to be brought outside or in an indirect sunlight window to help keep the jaundice levels down, then that should be daddy or a family or a support person. But mom should be in bed. She should be resting. She should be eating. She should be drinking. She should be letting all her internal organs find their place again. She was at the end of pregnancy, everything smashed, and that's I was going to say, surely you know that feeling. And then the baby's born, and all the internal organs and the bowels are like, oh, where do I find my place again? And it takes them a little bit of time. And so we want to honor that time and really give the body a chance to recover so that the bleeding stays within normal limits, and so her blood pressure can just adapt accordingly to postpartum, that she's circulating her feet and just pumping her feet for that great circulation, that she is getting up and walking to the bathroom on her own without feeling dizzy or lightheaded or faint. But she is focused primarily on just snuggling that baby and recouping at least a week in bed. And then maybe by the second week, okay, you're going into the kitchen, you're not making a full course dinner. Maybe you're just quickly putting together a sandwich for yourself or for a toddler. Or maybe you're just quickly throwing in, clothes in the washer, but you're not doing 10 loads of laundry and folding them and putting them away. That you're slowly getting back into the process. By week 3, sure, I think it'd be a good idea to get that next step. But taking advantage of protecting the time in the beginning is going to be easier to recover than pushing yourself and then finding, oh no, my bleeding's picking up, or oh no, I'm just not adjusting well. It's harder to rewind that. It's better if you just start at the beginning and give grace to yourself. Like you said, women are so, nowadays, I think with just working so much in our culture puts so much pressure on women to quickly get back not only to their bodies looking the same, but get back into the routine of the same. But no, that's not a good idea.
It's something that I find very interesting is that you'll never see a vet say that you can adopt a puppy at like 4 weeks or 6 weeks. A puppy has to be developed in their mother and recovered, and that dyad, or well, I don't know, there's lots of puppies usually, but that relationship has to be established. The puppy has to be ready to be able to do that. And in our society, we kind of do the opposite. We're like, okay, like how soon can we get kiddo? Get mom back to work, and what does that look like? And so just giving yourself grace and realizing that's where all of these different professionals can come in and give you that support, and really planning ahead of time. You've got 9-ish months by the time you find out you're pregnant to birth, hopefully, potentially start putting some pieces in place to give yourself that rest. Most of the world has significantly more postpartum leave in time than we do. And so we have to get creative, ladies.
Yes, meal trains.
Yes, meal trains.
Meal trains are awesome. People can actually drop off food on your doorstep, or they can send gift cards or vouchers for different restaurants, which is huge. I remember one of the most important things when I had my babies was, oh my gosh, we're gonna have a meal train. That takes off so much pressure off the mom to have to think about how she's gonna prepare a meal, because she needs to eat, her husband needs to eat, the kids need to eat. And when someone is gifting that to her, it makes a world of difference all day long, not just when it shows up at 6 p.m., but all day long. It's off her list, and it's a blessing for families. And then also other care providers, we talked about a postpartum doula, but an NCS. The newborn care specialists are great. They come in and they focus primarily on the baby, which can really bring a lot of good relief to the mom too. If she needs to sleep at night, and the newborn care specialist will bring the baby in for breastfeeding and then take the baby out for any kind of soothing or diaper changes, so the mother can just go to sleep, so that when the sun comes up, she can be the best mom she can during the day, because she had adequate sleep, because sleep is key to recovery.
Again, these are all pieces of the village that we're having to learn how to build back together. But we have so many resources here in Dallas. So I'm so grateful for that, for these opportunities. So if a mama is watching this, or somebody who wants to get pregnant in the future, and she's like, hey, I'm considering home birth and doing things differently, how would she reach out to you?
Yes, that's such a good question. And I love that we have so many midwives in the area, because we each have our own personalities. We each have our own focus. Maybe some of us are more focused on this, or have expertise a little bit more in this area. And depending on what the woman's needs are, what her body's telling her, what her body's showing her, then we have access to options. So what I always recommend, if a mom is not pregnant, or even if she is newly pregnant, that, hey, find out who all the midwives are. We're really easily located. And talk to a few of them. I would say almost all of them would be willing to meet with you for coffee, or in an office setting, anywhere, so that they can get to know you, you can get to know them, questions can be answered, and that relationship can either be solidified in their heart that that's a good idea, or like, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea for me, or maybe it is, but with a different provider. And so I really encourage the families in the area to get to know the providers. We're available. We want to be available. We want to do pre-conception counseling. We want to be involved in your pregnancies to help. If anything, just let you know there's options, and like, you can find them around here. But if you wanted to get to know me, you can find me at birthexperiences.net is my website. I have a Facebook page, Angie Heffner Midwife. I also have North Texas Birth Experiences on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Awesome. Well, it was such a pleasure having you, Angie. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And
well, you're awesome. I'm happy to be here.
Alrighty, friends. Thank you so much for joining us on the Dr. Mama Bird Show today. I hope you got some questions answered about what birth can look like, how you could experience it differently with our guest Angie here. And if you have, like we said, any questions or any thoughts, or just want to get to know more about it, you can check out Angie's website. You can reach out to her if you're looking for a midwife, or reach out to the Dr. Mama Bird Show as well. We have a long list of people to be able to support you. Have a great day.